Yo, Mason, what's going on?
Doing well. How are you, Ralph?
Fantastic.
It's always
What
good to hear.
weather's a little overcast here, but no biggie. Do you know where these excerpts are from that are in the meetup that Eric put in there?
I believe they are supposed to be from the correspondence between Seneca and Lucilius.
Oh, okay. I saw the link now. Cool, thanks.
Aren't there multiple variations of letters from a Stoic?
Probably. You mean like different translations?
No, not different translations, but for example, I have the Penguin version, and mine does not have the first letter in it.
Oh,
So I was kind of confused when he posted the first letter last week. I thought, maybe that one is a lost, or I wasn't sure.
yeah, I mean, it's possible because, I would imagine that authors and translators and all, people who are putting this work out, they might find more stuff and then write new material on it. And then the person who released like the previous version might not update it and just leave it as is, but I'm not sure.
Hmm.
I haven't read through this stuff yet. I just got started on Epictetus a little bit. And I do want to come to Seneca, but you would know better than me on that, I think.
On what exactly?
Like, I haven't read anything Seneca yet.
Okay.
Ralph, why didn't you read? We're supposed to read for this meeting. You're killing me.
I just read it today, and I was talking to Mason about how I read Epictetus. Why are you yelling at me?
That's my good.
I'm way more acquainted with Epictetus than I am Marcus Aurelius or Seneca.
I find that's easier to digest. I was reading Meditations, and I'm on like book 7, and I had to stop. It was going a little bit over my head, so I wanted to try something different. And Discourse is a little bit easier for me to digest right now.
I found the same thing about Meditations. It's like I can take it in spurts. I can take it in like 1 week. It'd be easy for me to digest, and then the next week it's like I just need a break from it. No, I'm there with you. All right, let's get started. So, continuing our Seneca discussion, today is the discursiveness in reading. This is the first letter that I came across, and I was like, man, this is not a sexy topic, right? But this is one of those Stoic principles that you look at and you think, man, if people could perfect this trait, their lives would be so much better, right? Yeah, I don't know where your phone's at, babe. That's my phone.
I need your
Oh,
phone.
sorry, guys. My wife's interrupting me. But this is one of those things that if you perfected your practice in it, life would be so much better. And it's the idea that you waste so much time pursuing what you think is wisdom that you probably don't need, right? So you found your purpose, you're practicing Stoic principles, and then now we're talking about, last week we talked about the time that you have and using the time that you have as best you can, as efficiently as you can for your purposes and addressing your priorities. Now, what are you doing with that time? What exactly are the sources of the wisdom that you're seeking? And Seneca writes in his letters in the first part of it, he talks about this idea of in talking to Lucilius, he's saying, you don't run hither and thither, which I love, hither and thither, and distract yourself by changing your abode. for such restlessness is the sign of a disordered spirit. And he has this analogy that you should stay in one place and not try to, always be on the move and always traveling, because if you don't have your feet set on the ground in one area, you're not going to be as productive as possible. And for me, this was, up until I found Stoicism, like a huge problem of mine that I never even recognized. I started college late. I didn't even start. I mean, I did military, like when I was in the military, I did some college stuff. But then when I really started my undergraduate studies, I was 24 and I had no idea what I was going to do. And I was studying everything. Like I was a general ed type guy, right? Didn't have a major. And I was studying and reading everything and completely lost. And like, I remember like going to bars and having these intellectual conversations with people and feeling like I was really erudite. But when it came down to it and trying to actually discuss the materials, I had nothing. I had wonderful first impressions that I was intelligent and smart and well-rounded. But when I was anytime that I was challenged specifically on the topics, I couldn't talk about it because I was not deeply studying what I was talking about. And that was, talk about imposter syndrome in your 20s and early 30s for me. That was it, because I thought that I wanted to be a jack of all trades and really well-rounded. And this idea that it was better to have a little bit of knowledge of everything versus deep, understanding of specific topics. And now I sit here as a 41-year-old probate lawyer I've told you guys my priorities and my family and my wife and my kid. And what I focus my time on as far as pursuit of wisdom is very, very narrow. And it's like we talked about before, of eliminating distractions in your life as far as how best to use your time and how efficiently to use your time. And that's what I've done. I've eliminated the distractions of what I saw to be wisdom that I should be pursuing. And I would get on Wikipedia in my free time and just spend hours falling down these rabbit holes, finding something that was interesting. And like, it was really entertaining to me to look at, like, the first thing I looked at, like, you say you're watching a show, you're watching a movie, and there's an interesting fact. You're like, hey, I want to double check that actually really happened. I'm a huge history buff, so I love reading, or I love watching things about, say, World War II or just history in general. So I would always say, oh, I want to double back on that and see if it actually happened. And then, you're looking at like how many drugs did Hitler do? And then 5 hours later, I'm reading about, the patent process and whatever. And it's just like, I've wasted 5 hours of my time. I've literally wasted, because in that time where I thought I was pursuing wisdom, I was not actually understanding it. It was just this general curiosity that I thought I was satiating, but I didn't learn anything. Now, the books that I read in the morning, I listen to my meditations, just telling Ralph, I really only follow Stoic philosophers in the readings that I routinely listen to. I also try to, like self-help type books and things like that. I've talked about on Fuck Yourself by Gary Bishop, things like that I will listen to. But my God, when I listen to them now, it takes me forever, because I will stop it. I will ponder it. I will try to analyze it. And the first time that I picked up anything Stoicism, it was Epictetus, and I listened to his discourses. And my God, guys, I think it took me, I'm not exaggerating, I think 3 months to get through that, because I would listen to it. And first of all, you just have to understand it. Even through the translation of modern English, it's still hard to understand and grasp the concepts that he's talking about. But once you do, and once you start to apply those concepts that he talks about to your life, and that real thinking part of it, where it's just you shut off everything and just think about it, that took a long time. And that was the beginning steps of the process for me to understand really what it meant to study deeply, to really take the time to understand something so you can talk about it. One of the best tips I ever learned in my life was in the military, and talking about, if you really want to know a subject, go teach it. So you would have these things, you probably have this at normal jobs too, where you have to train other employees, right? You have to provide some sort of a training. And I remember I was a training officer in my unit. So every week I would have to be the one to present an item. And if you've ever been in a situation where you're asked to present something or teach somebody else, you probably know the anxieties of, going before that class or that group and not preparing for it and thinking, my gosh, I hope they don't ask me something because I'm not going to know it. And that forced me, that idea that I have to teach somebody else forced me to learn it as best I can. And that's still something that I carry with me now, this idea. And I was a teacher before I went to law school. I did teach high school history. And it's that idea that if you really want to understand something, for me, it's always been my mechanism and trick that I use to do it like I had to teach somebody else. So in my day-to-day job now, if there's a new area that comes on, just happened this last week, right? I had an issue with a client in taxes. Ralph, God bless you. When anybody mentions numbers in my life, my mind just shuts off. I don't do taxes. I tell clients all the time, don't even bother coming to me with a tax question. I don't know it at all. I hate numbers. I hate everything. Right. But I had a tax issue this week that I had to learn about. So all I did was take the mindset of, I have to go now teach my client this issue about taxes. And that allowed me to get interested about it. I don't care about it. I hate numbers. I hate taxes. I hate tax law. I hate the tax code. But it became interesting, and I kept it interesting to me because I knew that I was going to have to teach it to somebody else. And I have a very, very deep understanding now of a very specific area of trust tax law, if anybody wants to know. So that's how I approach my learning today, knowing that I'm going to have to eventually either, well, two areas really. One, I treat my studies like I'm going to have to teach somebody else. Or a lot of times what I do inadvertently, and this is probably not the best practice, but it's just kind of who I am. I read something like I'm going to be challenged on it later, so I better know it, right? And that's kind of in line with my job. That's all really lawyering is, at advocating and challenging other people's positions. So that's what I've done, and how Stoicism has taught me to really, really understand something, and also have the humility to reach out to people if you don't understand something, and have the humility to say, I don't know, but I'll find out the answer, type of thing. So that's all to say that when I do good and I am virtuous in my studies, that's how I act. And those are the mechanisms I have in place. Now, let's be real for a second. That never fucking happens. It never does. It never does. Like that plan that I have in place of, I'm going to go and spend this much time studying this and I'm going to understand it deeply as best I can. That never happens because I allow myself to fall back into the number of myriad of issues that I have with focus and things like that. But I cannot wait to hear how you guys see this topic and what you do in your studies and how you spend your time, and what you read. A big problem that I have right now is finding fun. This group is a big part of my life. Stoicism is a big part of my life. Finding fun in the fun pursuit of wisdom, I guess you could say. As followers of Stoicism, I think that you should always pursue fun and respite and relaxation. But there's a quote somewhere that talks about, what you do when you go on vacation, type of thing. Are you relaxing, or are you trying to pursue wisdom and knowledge and things like that? So that's kind of my story and the application of this topic to my life and how I've seen it. So open up to you guys, and love to hear what everybody has to say about this. So go to Ralph first.
Thanks for sharing, Eric. I'm looking at what you put here in the meetup, and number 3 kind of stood out to me because this is something I've been dealing with. I have like an Audible Plus and I listen to audiobooks, and food does no good and is not assimilated in the body if it leaves the stomach as soon as it's eating. Nothing hinders a cure so much as frequent change of medicine. I have Kindle too, and I've been using the Gutenberg project to read like meditations and discourses. And I noticed that for me personally, I remember that stuff a lot better and I absorb it a lot better, because like when I'm sitting there reading, I'm not doing anything else. Like I'm sitting there, my glasses off. It's usually at the end of the night and I'm focused in. And if I read a passage and I don't understand it, I come back to it. Now, the problem with Audible is that because even though it's like so accessible and easy, the only time I really seem to absorb it is like if I'm like I'll listen to audiobooks while I'm exercising or something, or maybe like I'm deliberately listening to it, then I remember. But I'll have on audiobooks while I'm working and it's fucking gone. Like I don't even know what I know what book I was listening to sometimes. Like I can tell you what I was listening to before. I just bought Tribe by Sebastian Junger. My therapist suggested that to me, so I was working out listening to that. And that's a lot like The Way of Man, which I think is Jack Donovan. And I read The Way of Man, and I guess because of that like connection and the way I was listening to it, I remember that better. But if I'm listening to any book while I'm working, just fucking forget about it. And the more complicated it is, see you later. And that's something that I'm trying to work on better, is that like if I'm going to take the time to digest something, if I got to understand like the context of the situation, is that if like I'm working and I'm like busy, like there's a lot of complicated shit going on, then I'm essentially multitasking. Like I'm trying to ingest this book in an audio fashion and then I'm working. So my eyes and like are fixated on something else. So usually I'm probably doing a not as optimal way of doing my job. And then also I'm not listening to this audiobook, or I'm completely listening to the audiobook or not working or whatever. There's some sort of imbalance. And so that's something I'm thinking about. Like I like the audiobooks, but I haven't even tried listening while driving. I don't think that would help me either. So I think this is just like a stopping point for me. Like, is this Audible Plus subscription even worth it? Can I make the time to listen to these books? Because I think I like the idea of having the book on my phone or like the physical copy of it, because I want to ingest this. And then I think too, if I'm listening to something and it's like not useful to my life, or if it's like it's not well cited, or the information's not very strong, like kind of like you were like, I think you were talking about changing, like if I'm changing topics too frequently, like it's not going to serve any usefulness to me. Or maybe it's just like a bad audiobook, but maybe I don't recognize that as I'm passively listening to it, and then I'm ingesting something passively that's like garbage, or like maybe even worse. So that's something I'm trying to come to. And to go to your point on like the fun stuff, I just changed up my workout a little bit, and I don't know how I did this. Maybe I'll think about it a little bit and come back to you on this call or whatever. But like, I kind of think it's kind of fun when I fuck up. Like, I like failure. I like that. I've been trying to retune my brain that like rejection, in any sense of the word, or failure, is kind of fun. I'm trying to make that a thing. Like if I fail on a set of workout or whatever, or when I was like I was dating recently, and if I talk to a girl and she just outwardly reject me, I tried in my mind to be like, this is fun. Like there's nothing, I'm still alive. It's not bad. And I've done that with like solo traveling as well. Like I'm trying to make anxiety and depression as useful and provide any utility to me as possible. And like I just went ice skating for the first time recently, like, and it was kind of fun to just be out there and not know what the fuck I was doing. And then I saw other people who didn't know what the fuck they were doing. I saw this one guy, he was like shaking, like he was like, and everybody was like cheering him on. I was like, I fist bumped him. I was like, yeah, bro, you get it. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing either. You get out there. And like, there was a kind of a communal bond there for 2 seconds with this stranger in that embarrassment, and like just that pushing through the end, and everybody kept their wrists and their ankles, everybody was good. So yeah, that's what I got on that.
I love it, man. The idea of loving rejection, or you didn't say loving it, but treating it like it's fun. That's been something for me in the past year. Is a Stoic principle that you should love everything that happens, right? You have to look at everything like it's good. Even the bad shit that happens to you. If your child dies, you should look at it like it's good, right? And it's like, how the hell could you? But you have to understand that it's in like the natural course of action. Right? If something happened that it was supposed to happen, but the Stoic belief that you're supposed to love things. I love what you say about that, Ralph, because I I'm in this entrepreneurial type spirit at work right now, so I'm reaching out and trying to get business. And just like you, I'm like dating, right? At professional dating, it's rejection all the time, and going through lunches with people, and it's like, why the fuck am I here? But it's like, you got to look at the process. You have to enjoy the process. That's the name of the game with Stoicism. Enjoy the suffering, right? It's not, you realize it's going to be there, so why would you not choose to enjoy it? So I love that approach that you have to looking at rejection like it's fun. What a great concept. I think everybody should, because you get to choose how you feel about stuff, so why wouldn't you look at it like fun? To talk to your other point though about, for me, listening to audiobooks is in my car. It's perfect for me. It's the perfect length of drive that I have. It sets me up for my day in the morning going to work, and then it helps me decompress on the way home from work. So I've found this really nice groove of the time that I have and the medium that I enjoy in listening to books. I would offer you, Ralph, I think it's important to find time to set aside, right? Like, I'm like you, I've tried listening to audiobooks when I work out. I tried listening to work. I need to be focused. And that's why when I'm driving, my therapist has said the same, or said something to me earlier, a long time ago, about meditation while driving and just focus on driving. So I would turn off the radio. Like, I used to be a guy that would listen to NPR in the morning, listen to talk radio, listen to music, just kind of be pissed off that I had to go into work that day or whatever. And I changed my mindset and say, hey, this is the time that I can use, for some benefit to myself. So I started listening to audiobooks. And this, we're talking like 10 years ago. And I realized that what I liked about the process of when she said, use that driving time as meditation, is turning that off and just listening to silence and just listening to my thoughts. And Ralph, you and I have talked about, anticipating thoughts. And that was something that helped me, of like just enjoying the silence, enjoying the time that I have. And then that transitioned into my time now where I use it to listen to audiobooks. So going back to what you said about, I think that you have to find time to set that aside. It has to be quiet time. It has to be, in an environment that is going to be best suited for you to learn, like going back to, high school and college, and what is the best environment for you to learn. And also understanding the psychology of learning. Are you a visual learner? Are you an audio learner? All those kind of things. And once you've locked those down, you got, you know how best you're going to receive this information and store it and keep it, but also setting aside the time for you to do that. Tony, I love, he's not on the call, but if you heard him before, he listens to, I think, podcasts and audiobooks before he goes to sleep. He puts his phone under his pillow, and that's how he falls asleep. And I never heard anybody say that. I'm like, first of all, my wife would murder me if I did that. But that's the time he has, right? So I think it's really important, again, to find that time specifically for that purpose. Now, of course, you can do other things. I drive, he's trying to fall asleep, but you got to have that really focused time to really be able to focus on it, because if you're not going to grasp the material, and you're also not going to have the time to reflect on it. But the quote you talked about, Ralph, of having the appetite and not letting it sit in your stomach for a long time, that's also a problem I have, right? So like, Unfuck Yourself, I've been praising this book for months now, a couple 6 weeks or whatever, but I read it once, I listened to it once, right? And that's the kind of thing that, like, let's go back and talk about this in 4 or 5 months. Am I going to be able to talk about this book with any competence because I read it once? What I should be doing is go back and listen to it again and understand fully every concept and idea in that book. And I think that's what Seneca is talking about in this, is don't just go to the next book. Make sure before you go to the next topic that you really fully, deeply understand this. And that is talking about embracing the uncomfortableness. For me, that's wholly uncomfortable. I don't want to go back and read a book again that wasn't, the entire way entertaining and thrilling and interesting to me. That's like somebody telling you, listen, you have an entire year, all you get to read is Moby Dick, right? Or like one book, that's all you get to read, but that's what you have to do to really kind of fully understand something. So it's that uncomfortableness of going through the process of taking the time to spend, I'm kind of fucking my words here, but taking the time to really understand something and ensuring that it's there to the point where you can teach it on an expert level. And I don't like going back and redoing things again. I don't like taking the time to have to go back and do it, even though in my day-to-day life, every day I go back and I listen to meditations and the same, Aurelius, now it's Seneca. So I'm listening to those guys over and over again. But other than Stoicism, there's really nothing that I do as far as doing that again, right? Have you guys ever, do you do that? Do you read a book or listen to a book and then immediately go back and read it again? Or do you, like me, pick it up once every couple of years? I've talked about before with Viktor Frankl's. I read that every year, at least a couple times a year, just because it's the one book to me that gives me sits me the fuck down and says, here's your perspective, change it right now. You need to be happy because, this guy's story gives me that perspective. But that's the only book that I can point to that I do that with. Every other book that I read or any other topic that I touch on or that I study, I leave it alone. I think I have the knowledge and then I move on. So what about you guys? How do you feel about, really delving into something until you really understand it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at my Audible library here, and sometimes I think, like, I read through stuff and on paper it's good. Like it aligns with my values, and sometimes it's just not good. Really, like I'm looking at the Book of Joy, Lasting Happiness in a Changing World, and it's got the Dalai Lama and Desmond Tutu, and I just didn't really care for it. Like, I think it's good stuff, but I think the other things that I have read and more understood, like I just, like, I think some of the Ryan Holiday stuff, like Ego is the Enemy, Obstacle of the Way, they kind of more stood with me. I have like hunger to go back to them, but I guess I don't really feel a need to become an expert in any of this stuff. And then, so like, I just haven't gone back to that. So that's my short experience on it. But like, I wouldn't recommend the Book of Joy. I guess it's like, okay, but for me, it didn't like garner a re-listen, and it's long too. It's a long one. So how valuable is my time, I guess?
Yeah, that's, that's the point is, it's how much time do you have and how important is it to devote that time to that topic? And here's something I want to transition to. We're talking about books and studying and reading, but one of the things that Seneca talks about in this letter we just touched on was staying in one place. So I think that you can transition the idea of focused study to focused living. And one of the things I took away from his letter is just that you can't have a mind that wanders. You have to be in control of your mind and your thoughts, and also your relationships with people. And so, just my try to lay out my line of thinking here, and my relationships, say with women and my wife and all of those things in my 20s and 30s, I was somebody that wanted to have many relationships with different people. I wanted to have tons of friends. I wanted to be the popular guy. I wanted to, what I would do honestly is, because I was traveling so much in the military, I love to have friends in different cities to know if I got, sent there on short notice, I can call somebody up and say, hey, let's go out tonight or something. And I had that. I had like this network of people across the nations. But he talks about, I think he talks about in here, of kind of having acquaintances rather than deep friendships. And I have a lot of acquaintances with people rather than spending time with them to know them deeply. And now with the relationship that I have with my wife, she is my best friend. She is a person that I spend the most time with, and I genuinely respect and enjoy my time with her. And we have a relationship like I've never had with anybody else. And I wonder what type of relationships I would have had in my 20s and 30s if I had taken that approach to people. Instead of trying to be friends with everybody in the world, what if I had tried to be really good friends with the core group of people that I had, and focus the time that I had with them in the same way that we talk about studying, taking the time to really understand a topic and be an expert in everything about it, the same, and applying that to people. So are you really listening to what your friends are saying? Are you understanding what they're saying? Are you understanding the people that they are? You understand how you can support, their hopes and their goals and things like that? And I was not that person. I was the shittiest of shitty friends. I was a great acquaintance that could go out and have a good time and provide you some entertainment, but my friendships really suffered, and now they don't. And it's because I don't have a ton of friends. I have a very, very small group of very, very close friends that I check in with regularly, and I love it. And I don't have the burden of having to like check in on hundreds of friends all the time, because it felt like that when I was when I was in my 20s. You're emailing all the time, you're texting all the time. Hey, how are you doing? Just trying to maintain the relationship, and it gets exhausting. If you've ever read, trying to think, the guy Ralph, you may have known this, or somebody else does, where like I think it's Carnegie. Dale Carnegie talks about like knowing everybody's birthday, right? And on their birthday, you send them a note, and it's like, oh my God, how exhausting is that? And I remember listening to that, and it's like, it's like this idea that everybody thinks is the greatest thing in the world to be a wonderful friend and a great colleague and professional, all those things. And I remember hearing that and going, my God, why? Like, the time that you have, is that the best use of your time? Now, if you're a professional networker and your livelihood depends on those professional connections, sure, you can make an argument that that's the case. But I don't think that's the case for most people. I think you should have a very small circle of friends that you know intimately, and that that you can talk about with others like intimately, kind of a thing. So that idea that Seneca talks about of, make sure that what you can see in the reality around you, of what you can see in the room that you're in and the friends that you know right now, are you enveloping a mindset that is of that really focused learning type thing, to make sure that that relationship is as understood by both parties as much as possible? Are you trying to push Stoicism on your friends? Are you trying to advance things in a way that, benefits you also? So I think that's a great topic to consider too, is your relationships and focus study also. And that's one thing I got from Seneca.
Yeah, that's a good one. I think you might be referring to How to Make Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. I listened to that as well. And I think you mentioned purpose before, and then like obviously Seneca's mentioning this too, but like you said, like if you're a professional networker, or you run a sales and you're like an account executive, or you have a business and you need to make a lot of connections, then those kind of surface level connections are better than like deep connections. And ideally, I guess if you have that type of position, you still have deep connections with people on the side, like deep friends, deep family connections. And I was just like you, like when I was in college and in high school, I thought that I wanted like a lot of surface level connections with people. I had no need for that. I just thought that's like what I wanted, but what I really wanted was more deep connections. And thankfully now I have some relationships that are deeper, and then I do have a reasonable network of like more acquaintances, I guess. But I think you're right. I think it's completely like what you need and what your job, and what kind of life that you're living in. Do you need that? Do you need to have like 1,000 contacts in your phones with like surface level friends, where it's like, oh, I'm friends with Bill because he also likes the Philadelphia Eagles? Like that's not a deep relationship. It's different to say like, oh, I'm friends with Eric because he's also practicing Stoic. Like that's a more deeper thing, because that's aligned with like fundamental core values with something that I'm in line with. Like if the Eagles lose, like, oh, we could talk about that for 4 seconds, but like how deep of a connection is that? And that's something that I wanted to share too, is like I didn't know what kind of connection I wanted. So I had to become friends with myself to figure out, like, for me, I think I like kind of like a balance. Like I think I like to have some acquaintance connections where I hang out with friends and we go drinking and it's kind of like, you know, lighthearted. And then I like to have some friends where we talk about philosophy, politics, religion, things like that. We could talk about loss, regret, shame, like love, happiness, those types of things. And that's just the way it works for my life right now. And I had to sit in that for a long time. I had to sit there and meditate and like question myself with wise mind and be like, why do I need to feel like I need to have like 1,000 friends? Like, why do I think that? Oh, because it makes me feel good. Why does it make me feel good? Oh, because I have more people I can talk to. Why do I care? I need more people to talk to. I'm like drilling in with a fucking submarine sized jackhammer to figure out exactly why the hell I even gave a shit. And turns out I didn't. It was something that it was a value system learned from somebody else that I was projecting onto myself. And yeah, just talking about it makes me a little sweaty right now, but it's good shit right now.
I love uncomfortable conversations, and I think as you're talking, Ralph, I'm going back, and all I'm saying in my head is ego is the enemy, and the ego was my enemy in my 20s, because I was the same way. I wanted those friends because my ego told me that I needed to be popular. I got my wife Matthew Perry's autobiography for her birthday. And I got it like a year ago, and it just came out recently, and she listened to it and she's like, yeah, it was good. And she's a huge Friends fan, so I was like, oh, I'll check it out. I got through like the first 2 chapters. I was like, I can't. And I can't, because it was just a lot of woe is me. My circumstances pushed me to be a drug addict, and I couldn't control myself with drugs and things like this. And as he was talking about his early life and how it applied to his later life and troubles and drug addictions and things like that, I'm thinking, going, bro, if you just had somebody to say, you need to shut the fuck up when it comes to your ego, you'd be safe. That's it. You need to stop chasing other people's approvals. And when it comes to it, I want to touch on one thing that Seneca says in the letters, is that this idea that I want to read it so I'm not fucking it up, and I'm going to tie it to Matthew Perry too. So he says, this is my own custom. From the many things which I have read, I claim one part for myself. The thought for today is one which I discovered in Epicurus. For I am wont to cross over even into the enemy's camp, not as a deserter, but as a scout. So he says, this is what Epicurus says: contented poverty is an honorable estate. And if you've read Stoicism enough, you know that it's really based on cynicism. And cynicism is this idea that you don't need anything other than what you have on your body and in your mind. And I remember thinking about Matthew Perry, if he would have embraced the idea that poverty is the way to happiness, not poverty being that you don't have anything, that you have a want of a need. You know, you need your basic sustenance, you need your pillows taken care of, as far as the main pillars that you need in place for safety, security, happiness, whatever. But the idea that once you have everything that you need in life, make sure we have the definition of need taken care of, that you have sustenance, you have safety, you have security, that you have that also for your relationships, your immediate nuclear family. Once that's met, what else do you need? Nothing. Stoicism tells you that you don't need anything else except those things probably taken care of, but then you have your own mind to choose your happiness. Once you start looking towards externals for those happiness, you're going to lose sight of it. I've had I was going to say the pleasure. I've had the experience to be friends with a lot of people that were not really celebrities, like professional athletes, and some people in Hollywood. I did a little bit of security after the military, like bodyguard type stuff for some people, like wealthy people, not like actors or anything, just like the people that own the giant houses. You're like, what the fuck do you do to have that house, kind of a thing? But I understood that these uber wealthy people, every single one of them was extremely unhappy, because I got to see them behind the scenes out in public. And I was in politics too. And you see this in politics all the time. They put on a face, they put on a facade to their friends, out in the world, to everybody. Behind closed scenes, You take that away and they're just a shell of themselves. They are not happy. They're trying to seek others' approval. They live and die by others' approval. And the minute that somebody rejects that approval, they just wilt. And I think of myself, if you didn't have that dream of escaping your idea of poverty, thinking that you're not going to be rich unless you have everything you want, you're never going to be happy. And I think Seneca touches on that, or he nails that on the head when he talks about, I want to read the rest of the line for you. Indeed, if it be contented with the poverty, it is not poverty at all. It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more. That is poor. Think about that, right? If you have everything you need and you're still craving more, you're a poor, poor person. Because if I have everything I need and I'm not wanting anything else, I have it all. I'm not poor, right? But if you're continually wanting more, you're never going to find it. You're the cat chasing the laser pointer. You're never going to get that success until you understand that your happiness is only going to come within. So we're getting a little, I mean, this is the topic of Seneca's letter, of course, but that idea that you have to focus on what you have and stop trying to give your attention to other things that don't matter. That's what he's talking about. What matters? And why are you spending any time on things that don't matter? Ask yourself that question. Does this matter to me and my purpose? If not, why am I spending any time on it? And for me, when I talked about earlier that I fail a lot, that's the question that I fail on. Because if I stop and ask myself, is this in line with my purpose? Probably not. And then that has to be the end of it. And then the other part is this in line with my purpose? Sure, I can make the argument that it can maybe. And the second part of that question has to be, is this focus? Like, is this the best use of my time to pursue that purpose kind of thing? So those are my thoughts on it. Anybody else got anything else? You're gonna make me keep talking.
Hi, Eric. I'm gonna say hi.
Hey, good to see you.
I know it's been so long, but then I had to as well pump up my stoicism myself. I don't know. I think I might have mentioned I was in a divorce. So January 2nd was the 1 year. In Canada, we have to have 12 months of a legal separation or we can't get divorced. So I'm here thinking, yeah, on January 2nd, 2023, I'm a signed girl. I'm going to sign that thing. I'll be divorced. And it's like, what? It's not actually going exactly as I had thought. And so in this little bit of time before the holidays, and now I've tried to find a new lawyer, and then now I'm going to retain a new lawyer, but it means that I have to I had an investment that was maturing in 2025. And I said, no, I need that to retain this lawyer because you guys are so freaking expensive. And I said, okay, but I have to do it. And so it meant to, like, I could say Stoicism example, but I could also say Einstein, who said, what's the definition of insanity? Doing something over and over and expecting a different, outcome. And I was just sticking with my lawyers because I picked females. And this is probably the thing I hate to say the most because it's such a stereotype, but I needed someone that was far more aggressive and assertive. And so I now am retaining a male lawyer. Now, I do love women and I do, want to support them, but these specific ones weren't as aggressive as I needed them to be. And I didn't want to let them go just because of their gender. And it's like, no, gay, your boat is sinking. You got to go. just get a buoy. I don't know. So I'm there now and, just trying to listen in on what you guys are speaking on. I can say, well, with Ralph, and you're saying you're working and you're not retaining anything, they have a concept that you can doodle while listening to something and it is being absorbed. So your cells want to absorb anything you come in contact with. So that's when you want to be stoic and say, I'm not going to come in contact with things that I do not like. So if you are saying that's a book that you selected and you're working and you don't feel you're absorbing it, you're absorbing it. I can only listen to a book for a short time audio, and then I'm starting to write. Am I writing about that? It might prompt me. It might be a writing prompt, but then it's like my whole thing. I just came up with a new concept now. I don't have to do what they are specifically saying, but I need to extract whatever it evokes from me. Oh, I'm going with that. That is source now working. That's my microbiome. And then as well, books that I love Kafka because he's bad to worse. And it just makes me learn from that. Say, hey, be grateful. It could be worse. And Godel, Escher, and Bach, Eric, when you like to say when you have to repeat something, that book you'd be rereading 100. I can't even get through it. It's very, very thick on top of that, but it's you have to know science, art, and math kind of thing. Art, science, music, art, and science. And the art part, I kind of get. The math, I don't get at all. I'm like you with the numbers. I need an accountant. I need to be handheld. If it's a form, like, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I have to try and get help in those areas, because I'm not afraid to say, I don't know how to do something. That is very much humbling yourself and then getting the right person. Because I want staff. Like, you want to talk numbers, you want to talk accept the failure. I want to pay taxes. I want to have so much tax pushed on me by the government because I am that successful. She's wealth. So I'm a girl. I like the rest of my feminine. So yeah, numbers go up. And if you think it's like, oh, I got to pay taxes this year, I hope to God I have to pay $1 billion. So yeah, so these are the things that I will gravitate to as something to hang on and to see it as optimism. Like, it's, wow, I get to have this. Even if maybe lots of society might be saying, I don't want to really pay taxes this year. I don't want to pay GST. I don't want to pay PST. I don't want to pay anything. I want to pay everything. So these are little prompts to get through to the next hurdle in this divorce, I guess, too.
Well, I'm glad to see you back. I'm sorry you're going through that, and I'm sorry that you have lawyers involved. I'm a lawyer myself, but I hate them, and I certainly help even paying for them. So I'm sorry you're going through that. But you know, I love the first time we ever met. Yeah, you said that, I wake up every day and I won the lottery, and I love that optimism you have. So I know that you're going to wake up every day with the optimism to find the joy in your divorce, right? That's something that's probably the reason I'm not a divorce lawyer, because I'd probably say that to my clients, like, welcome to your divorce proceedings. You need to find the joy in this. You need to love this, and I'd be fired every time. But in talking about this focus study now, and you mentioned something of, and I'm going to challenge you a little bit, Guy. You said that our cells want to assimilate or, want to receive information. They want to get those things. And I agree with you. And I think the same kind of thing, that if you passively listen to something, the learning through osmosis type thing. Like, I think I literally probably slept with a book under my pillow when I was a child, because I thought that I could get the information, or God forbid, Cliff's Notes. Like, that was how I got through high school and in the early part of my college, because I thought I could passively learn something and then pawn it off as if I knew it, right? Cliff's Notes is the antithesis to Stoicism, okay? You cannot say that you're a learned, wise person if you're getting the headline version, if you're getting the outline version. You cannot. You have, if you're going to take the time to pay attention to something and give your time, to give your currency of time to something, to an idea, to an author, to a concept, take the time to fucking know it, right? Don't think that you're going to come away with just the headline version. So and this is the only challenge I have for you, Gay. If you're somebody that can passively learn something and accept all of it and have that understanding, God bless you, sister. I am not that way. I'm somebody, if I'm going to understand something, I need to go away to like a black room in a retreat for 2 weeks and not have anybody bug me. Like, Bill Gates does this every year. I don't know how much time he takes, but he has like this retreat where it's just him. Then he goes away to some cabin, like Ted Kaczynski cabin in the woods, and gets like a case of Diet Coke and just reads. And he's one of those speed reading guys, which I want to talk about too. But he reads books and books and books by himself. Like, that's the time he sets aside. And that's one of the things he's always pointed to, is that he's a voracious reader and he reads everything put in front of him. And I think that he has a really, really unique ability to do that speed reading thing and get all the information. People have talked about how he can, and he does legit speed read, and then he can talk about it really quickly. That's a very unique trait that he has. But I, as a practicing Stoic, I also say to myself, that's not a gift. That isn't something that he was touched by God. That's something that he has trained his brain to do. So everybody else can do it. That is a human possibility. Everybody else can do it. And my God, think of the world we would live in if everybody was trained as a child to speed read and accept all the information that you got through and then be able to regurgitate it as fact. If everybody had that mindset to be able to get that information and then have it in you and then use all of the information in such a way to,
we'd be AI.
we wouldn't have any world. Like, bacteria wouldn't be a problem. We'd have to solve cancer in the 1500s. Like, but that focus study, that ability, like the Bill Gates mentality, to have that type of focus study, I think that's what we're after. Now, the speed reading type of it, that is, again, that to me is the antithesis. When I got to law school, there was this guy that peddled this speed reading thing. And I was like, look, I'm a pretty average reader. I'm a pretty average thinker. It takes me a time to read things a few times. I get distracted. I definitely have a touch of ADD. It takes me a long time to read passages. And he was like, just to go through things. It's so much easier. Life's so much easier. We're going to have, and we were in law school. You literally read upwards. I would, if I had to guess, and I'm not trying to exaggerate here, you're probably reading anywhere from 200 to 300 pages a day. And when you're in law school, and that's all you do is read and then regurgitate it. Okay. So I was like, I'm looking for any tips and tricks I can to try to get through that process earlier so I can get out and do the fun things I want to do. The speed reading thing is the way to go. And I realized that because I hadn't trained my brain that way, and I picked it up later in life, and I was just using like the surface level technique to it, I was not getting all of the information. I was getting the nuts and bolts, and I could talk about things, and I could be engaged in conversations, and I could even do it in a law school class. I could get up and talk about a case. But what it was meant to, what the process of that entire environment is meant to do is for you to really understand the concepts. And I was not getting that because I thought that I could just touch on those. So I would caution anybody if you tried to do it later in life, if you want to have the Bill Gates mentality to speed read through things, get through things, it's going to take a lot of effort. But anybody else who tries to peddle me the snake oil of speed reading with also understanding things, I'm always going to be, I'm always going to challenge those people, because I do not think, unless, again, you've had a lifetime of this practice, that you can read through things quickly, really have an ability to even process it and analyze it, unless, again, you've done it your entire life. So,
and Eric, I will add in that the caveat emptor is that I am an introvert. So all this time that you guys might be saying, oh, you're out there socializing, you're going to the bar, you're doing, I might not have that on my schedule at all. Like, these are the moms, this is my daughter and my granddaughter. And like, it's like, oh no, I don't have time for like any of that. I can concentrate from morning to night on writing. I can concentrate from morning to night I have now opened an e-commerce store. So I'm not used to it yet. I'm still building it, I should say. So that's 6 weeks in the making. And it's like, because now I can't be a housewife to no husband. So I have to like do something that makes dollar bills. And so that's what I'm trying, but I'm a tech wreck. So the learning curve is high. But again, I can always use Stoicism, but I could say as well, Churchill said, if you feel like you're going through hell, just keep going. And that's when you go even harder, though, when it is so hard to yourself to handle what situation you are now upon. More showers, more bling, more happening, more representing. And then you just, and I'm a girl, so I rest my feminine, so I have to do it that way. Like a guy, maybe, I don't know.
Look, Churchill was on something. The obstacle is the way, right? I totally agree. And, I hate to go back to this again, but this idea of purpose, and I would challenge everybody on this call to think about this for a second. You guys all know your purpose. You know what the best use of your time and what you do is. But Warren Buffett had this idea that I learned long ago, that if you were to sacrifice 2 years of your life, you'd be so much better on the other end of it. And I tell a lot of people that I mentor younger attorneys, I mentor vets that are coming out of the military. And that's one concept I always give them is, right now, I don't care where you're at in your life. I don't care if you think, if you're a parent with 19 kids and mortgages and you're in your 50s, or if you're a kid that's 2 days out of college, or if you're a vet that's a day out of their enlistment. Understand the concept that 2 years of sacrifice is going to make your life the rest so much more better. And the 2 years of sacrifice is focused study. How is it not? All you have to do is focus your studies on what your purpose is. And just an example for me, my purpose has been my wife and my family, and then my job and me, right? And I really embraced this probably 5 years ago when I really picked up Stoicism the first time. And I was at a point in my life that was great for me, because I didn't have kids yet, and I didn't have a lot of the responsibilities I knew I was going to have. But I embraced that mindset. I said, look, if you can really sacrifice the things that you want to do versus the things that you don't want to do, knowing that they're going to make you a better person right now, that's going to make your life in the end a lot better. And I'm still doing it. We're, probably 4.5 years later, and I'm still in that mindset of sacrifice your time now. It's going to make you better later on. But it's no longer a sacrifice, because it's now I embrace the idea that the time that I have is not spent on things chasing that I want. They're not spent on chasing comfort. They're spent chasing uncomfortable times. They're times spent, I would so much rather go out on a Wednesday night and go to a pub trivia with my friends, or watch a ball game, or get drunk with my wife, or not work out. Do the comfortable things, the things that feel good, versus telling my wife, no, I don't want to spend time with you. I'm going to go sit down in the basement and read a book for 45 minutes and take notes like I'm a college student.
Mhm.
But the book is going to give me growth. The book, that uncomfortable 45 minutes of doing something that I don't want to do versus, spending time with my wife doing something else, is going to give me growth and knowledge that I'm not going to find anywhere else. And I'm going to be able to use that. And it's such a short period of time, right? So understanding that mindset that you have to sacrifice against the comfortable, embrace the uncomfortable, do the things that you may not want to do, that are not sexy, that are not fun, but are going to make you a better person. And if you can do that for 2 years, it's going to open up your mindset. 5 years ago, I had no money. I had no home. I had a car that was, I hate to even say this to you guys. I had a 2004 GMC Envoy that had a fuel leak that I was scared was going to blow up every day. I had nothing. I was fat. I was depressed. I had nothing. And right when I met my wife and found Stoicism, I was like, you know what? If I can sacrifice the time and what I want to do versus what I should do. And it's changed my life around. Now that, of course, hasn't. It's been a very, very long process. But I just wish that everybody could embrace that mindset of really focus on that uncomfortableness and that study that's going to make you a better person. So I challenge any of you guys right now, look at what you're doing. Find times that you say, I'm going to go out with my buddies. I'm going to go do this for fun. Now, there are things you have to do to maintain those relationships, right? If you've got a friend that you're just Eagles fans with, Ralph, you have to go watch the Eagles game with them. That's part of the relationship. That's why it's there, right? They're going to lose today, by the way. But the other part of it is you have to do this, right? Take one thing this week that you want to do, whether it was something fun, right? Whether you're going to go out drinking or read or watch a shitty TV show, take that hour and go read a book. Go read a book that's got some credence, that's got some respect, that's got something that aligns with your purpose. I'm not going to tell you what book it is. You'll find it out. Go fucking read. Spend that time focusing and really understanding it. And after that 45 minutes an hour, you're going to realize that you're a much better person. I'm going to shut up now. Ralph, don't yell at me about
I'm not an Eagles fan. So actually what I hope happens for the Super, and actually I don't watch sports. So what I hope happens is that for the Super Bowl, it's just like a tie. And then they just never resolve the tie and they play for days. And then they're like, all right, we're going to go home now. And then everybody just goes home and they're like, all right, football's over. This is the last football game ever. But anyway, I just wanted to talk about focused study. And I had a lot of sleep debt, like maybe I developed it like years ago. And I noticed it was affecting my quality of life, like kind of like a year and a half ago. So I was like, I'm going to go to bed early. So I focused that study. I was like, how do I make myself go to bed a little bit early? Because I mathed it out. I was like, or if I get like an extra hour and a half, 2 hours every day, they can get caught up and then we'll see how it feels. So I had to do like a lot of looking into like my routine before the end of the night and also my like diet and how much I was working out to make that happen. And then it was really weird. Like it got caught up a lot faster than I thought because it was like odd. Like I'd wake up like I did that for maybe like a year and a half. And then I just started waking up like 2 hours before my alarm. And I get up at like 6. So it's like 4 a.m. I'm like, what the fuck am I doing up? And then I could not go back to sleep. So some mornings I'd wake up and start my day and start eating or whatever. Or I would just try to lay there, like just wide awake, like it's time to get up or whatever. So it took me it even took me some focused study to like, and I wasn't writing any of this down. So that's one thing I've noticed is like I was doing some focus study, but it wasn't that focused. Because when I think of like how optimized it was, like I could have discovered like within that week, like, oh, I'm caught up on sleep debt. Like I feel really good. And when I wake up at like 4 a.m., 4:30, like it's time to go. And then also I can stay up later because I'm caught up on my sleep debt. And I think that focusing on study can expedite stuff a little bit. And I think if I had more focused my time documenting what was actually happening with me and doing that, just putting in a little bit of extra work and being a little bit more diligent as opposed to like doing other things that weren't as high value to me, then Maybe I could have been a little more efficient. It's not a huge time loss at the end of the day. It's something I've discovered about myself, but I think you're right, Eric. Like there's definitely like an accumulation of interest over time, putting in the time to do that work. And I think that everybody needs some sort of fun activities, like to go out and drink or watch football or do whatever. But if you've got a monster in your closet and you're going out and you're spending like $200 at the bar watching the Super Bowl, like you might need to look at your life. Because if you're one of those people too that go there like, yeah, we're in the Super Bowl, like, no, you fucking ain't. They're in the Super Bowl and you happen to live in that city with a bunch of players who probably aren't even in from that city. And I think it's a lot of that objective looking. I think everybody, if they have that time, can go out there and enjoy whatever sports event and have a blast and drop $200 on like a bottle or whatever. But you know, if your sleep schedule's fucked up, then maybe it's time to retune a tad.
Yeah, well, the sports thing, you know, I used to be a huge sports fan, and in Stoicism, it's just you have that awareness, right? They say a lot in psychology, the cure is awareness. And I remember thinking, like, I follow a team that none of these guys are from my hometown. None of these guys live in my hometown when the season's done. Like, sports to me wasn't a tribe. Somebody just said they got the book, The Tribe. Wonderful book by Sebastian Junger. And that was a book actually that helped me really understand my purpose as a human being. And really, and Ralph, I know you're a fan of history too, and civilization history. That book is phenomenal book. And as somebody in the military that saw that tribal kind of lifestyle, it makes so much more sense. And the sports aspect to me was like, why the fuck am I wasting all this time? Let me focus my time on something else. And I still watch sports. I'm going to watch both games today with my wife. We're going to have a great time. But the great part about it is when those games are done, I move on to the next thing. And I have past acquaintances, when those games are done, they're going to be in a bad mood until Thursday, or they're going to be in a great mood until whenever. And it's like, why are you letting somebody else that you have no connection with dictate your happiness, right?
That was
like,
me.
It's not like your mom or dad are playing in that game. It's not like your brother's playing in that game. If it is, then go be a fan and be happy the rest of the week. But if it's not, go about your life. Like, anyway. One thing you did say, Ralph, that I thought was phenomenal is think about focus or what I was talking about earlier of, you know, doing something uncomfortable and focus study, that idea of focus study on one area of your life. Sleep is a huge one. And for me, like, it was a sacrifice for me to go to bed early because I wanted to stay up and do fun things. And having the sacrifice, I'll be really honest with you guys right now. I don't think this is recorded and the world's going to hear it, but my wife and I had followed this routine of like, we would only do sex at night. And because of the way we were, like, it was only from our window was like 10 o'clock to 11. Right. And that's the time that we had, and we would make it work. Then we're going to bed at 11 o'clock. And it's like, or 11:30 if things are really good. But it's like, I'm so much more tired getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning if I'm going to bed at 11 versus, hey, why don't we find other times? We can find other times to make this work and not go to bed so early. So it's a sacrifice of sex and going to bed early. I don't know how many people would say, you know, I'd rather go to bed early than have sex tonight. And it's like, I mean, that to me was like the biggest sacrifice in my life. But I did it. And I let her know. And I said, hey, babe, sorry, no bones tonight. Like, we're going to bed early. And we do it now. We go to bed early most nights. We get up early, and our life's so much more different. And yeah, we found time to get the other activities in. So that has been that. My God, think about that. Sleep. Everybody knows how important sleep is, and everybody is very, very subjective when it comes to sleep. I'm a type of person that I literally survive every day on about 6 hours and 20 minutes. It's taking me that long to figure it out, but that is it. I don't set my alarm anymore.
Yeah.
I know that I'm going to get up 6 hours and 20 minutes. My body just automatically wakes me up. I don't know if it's from sports and waking up early, playing hockey as a kid, or military, or what it is, but 6 hours and 20 minutes is it. My wife, she's about a 7 hour and 10 minute sleeper, right? So knowing how much sleep you have and then not exploiting that, right? You hear about in depression, so many people say they just can't get out of bed. Well, it's not because you need more sleep. It's just you don't want to act. You don't want to take that first step to get out of it. It's completely different than people who are depressed staying in bed. But for people that don't have a depression need to stay in bed, why, right? Why do you feel like you need more sleep? Stoicism tells you your body's going to let you know how much sleep you need. You know, your body is going to let you know how much rest you need. Exploiting that and taking more than you need, you're wasting your time now. And also understand that if you make a little bit of a sacrifice on the other end of it and go to bed earlier, waking up earlier is going to give you more time. Or, you know, for somebody in the Ralph situation where you say, you know, I can't find the time to do these things. For me, working out, Ralph, was huge for me. I know that if I can work out in the morning, it sets up the rest of my day, my family and time and everybody's schedule and things like that. but who wants, and we have a home gym in our garage, and I'm in Michigan, and it's 0 degrees outside, and we have a heater down there, but it doesn't work that well. So you're going down, and it's literally about 45 degrees in that gym if you're getting down there at 5:15 in the morning. You want to slap in the face of uncomfortableness? Come work out with me in the morning. And
Beautiful. I'm booking a flight now. See you in a little bit.
embracing that it's hard. It's very hard to push yourself to have the courage to want to do that. But I knew that I had to, because it sets up the rest of my day to allow myself to better focus and narrow my day to what I need to do. So anyways, guys, I've embraced this mindset fully. I feel like I have the answer for everybody, but it's so hard to talk to people because this is such a subjective thing to get past, whatever impediment you think is in front of you, and stripping those away and trying to look at your life in a really 10,000 foot view. Detach yourself from the, what you see day to day, and you're going to find time to do these things. You're going to find deficiencies in how you're spending your time. And if then once you find those deficiencies and you create holes for yourself to engage in this active focus study, now it becomes actually doing it. So I want to talk real quick about the journaling process in this. And I think that's one thing that's helped me the most that's again, a subjective tip that I use to come back to really make sure that I'm aware of what I'm doing. So part of my journaling, I journal once a day. Not Stoics tell you, do it in the morning and do it. And I do it once a day, and I reflect every morning on my day before that. But as part of that reflection, I will have sometimes, not all the time, because I'm a failure most days, but I will have a reflection on my focus study and what I need to do better with my time. And if I recognize that, you had an attempt here to spend that hour digesting something, what can you tell me now about it? And I'll challenge myself, and I'll try to write out like a little paragraph, right? Say, this is what I know. And if I feel like, oh, you're deficient in this, you don't actually know this topic, that's my test to go back and read it again, right? Go back and spend time thinking about this so you really understand it. So journaling for me is the one thing that I have that I can offer everybody. If you really want to, it's like a barometer. That's your litmus test to see if you really understood something, is go try to write a little blurb about it, right? Like you're trying to tell a friend something. And that has been the greatest tool that I have. And I do it for work. I used to do it with my wife inadvertently. I would try to tell her something about a case that I was talking about, and I would realize like, oh shit, I actually don't know this. Let me go back and learn it again, kind of a thing. And then I just transition that into every area of my life. Friendships, relationship with my wife, anything that I try to better myself or gain wisdom. If I think I've gained the wisdom, then I just automatically challenge myself on it. So I would offer that to anybody. Journaling, wonderful way to keep yourself really honest about your studies. And it's great. I think some people say you can go back and track it. I don't use it that way. I have the logistics of what I do in my journaling is I have a Google document that is every day my journal. And I just open that document, and I have 7 days there. And then after I'm done with those 7 days, I copy that and put it into an email. But I never go back and read those emails. I'll read them for the week, but I have years of those weekly journals that I've never gone back and look at. I use it more just for in the moment kind of challenging myself. So, Ralph.
Yeah, real quick. I wanted to kind of go back to I guess the beginning of the call when we were talking about making friends. And I think with the focus study thing, and I've been thinking about this even before this call, is I was listening to something about it seems like there's this kind of debate of if you're working on developing yourself, some people have the frame of mind, don't tell nobody. You succeed secretly, and then out of nowhere, you're just this beautiful butterfly and this new skill, and people are like, holy shit, what the fuck? Or you share it with people, and then they keep you accountable, because it's they'll check in on you, you reading Stoicism books, you reading your books. So I've thought about that. And I think the focus study part plays into this. And then also the focus study of the people in your life that can keep you accountable. Cause I have friends, I think I've talked about drinking buddies who are very kind of surface level. If I tell them you know what, I like the Eagles again. And they're like, oh, fuck, we could talk about the Eagles, and we could talk about the quarterbacks and the throwing of the football and all that shit. But if I talk to them oh, I go to a weekly Stoicism call, they're like, what are you trying to be smart, motherfucker? Who gives a shit about Stoicism? And I think about just the people in my life. I hope that they're doing this with me, but I want to use those people and let them know, for my deep, close friends, I'm actually going to see some of them today. They're going to ask me what's up. I'm going to be like, yeah, I'm in the Stoicism call, and I'm deriving a lot of value from it. It's helping me kind of put my life in a really good perspective. I'll tell them that. and then they'll keep me accountable because this is something that is fundamentally important to me. And then I'm fundamentally important to them. They're fundamentally important to me. Therefore, like there's synergy in this conversation topic. Now, for whatever reason, I decided to I like the Eagles again. And I told my friends who care about me on deep level, like, yeah, I started watching football again. They're like, all right, that's cool. Football. They don't even really like football either. So it doesn't even make sense if they were Eagles fans. And it's like, all right, well, my close friend is going to watch football like 2 to 3, 4 hours a day now. Like it doesn't really matter to them either way. So I've objectively tried to look at some of my friends and think about what they're going through, put myself in their shoes to kind of like, okay, if I have these people in my life, like how can they help out possibly what I'm doing? Maybe we can create a connection there that's like useful to them and me and try to create like a win-win situation in a way. So I just want to add that.
Ralph, you're so funny when you say I'm an Eagles fan now, because I was raised an athlete. I'm very much like Eric. So I love anything sports. Mind you, I don't necessarily watch football. My brother did play football for college, but I will always say that when you're thinking sports, think of Stoics, because they believed in a time it was reasonable to go one-on-one up against an animal, like a lion. So this is the doctrines we're following. So we got to say we tamed our sports, okay?
And sports absolutely have a purpose in life, certainly. But I will add to what you said, Ralph, about your friends. And I've said this before, and I'll let everybody try to reconcile this. My friends should only be people that are on this call. Now, I hate each and every one of you for not living anywhere near Milford, Michigan, but Epicurus.
Milford sucks though.
Milford's amazing. I know what you're talking about. This is the land of Dak. What's his name? We have like one famous person that came from here.
He's so famous you forgot who he was.
That's the guy that married the Kristen Bell chick, Dak Shepard. Anyway, but it's the idea that your friends should be philosophers. If you're a follower of Stoicism, all of your friends should be philosophers. I routinely converse with many people who are followers of Stoicism. I don't go out with anybody that are followers of Stoicism because I don't have them around me. It's the reason I started this fucking group. Started this group from Milford, Michigan. It used to be titled the Michigan Meetup Stoicism or Michigan Stoicism. Now it's just the Stoicism because you guys are from all around the world. But challenge you this: look at all of your friends. Why are you friends with them? Because you knew them at a point in time, and you had the fortune to cross paths at a point in time, and you've maintained that connection just over time, right? But I don't have a best friend in my life anymore because the one that I had, I stopped talking to because I realized that there was no value for me in that relationship because it was shallow. It was sports. It was things that don't matter to my purpose. It was a very, very difficult break for me. I still think about him all the time. I hope his family's doing well. Having talked to the guy in over 4 years, but I've never been happier because my friends, my real friends that I talk to every day, that I converse with every week, they're the ones that like you talked about, Ralph. They hold me accountable. I know we talked about accountability partners in the past. And you cannot rely on other people for your own happiness. But God damn, it's nice when you have a friend that calls and says, hey, how are you doing? Are you staying true to yourself? That reminder. And that to me is not so much accountability as that's just fellowship. That's just your man looking out for somebody else based on the love that you have for them and the want that you have for them to be successful and to get everything they want and to be as happy as I am and to support my happiness and help me get some more happiness. But I will not call anybody a friend of mine unless you are also embodying what I believe and how I think you should be living your life. I have many, many, many acquaintances, and I have no problem telling those people that they're acquaintances, and they fulfill a very certain purpose in my life. But if you're going to be my friend, you need to fulfill all of the purposes that I'm asking for. And I can't be friends with somebody that isn't a philosopher, that constantly thinks about why they're here and what they're doing here and how they can make their life better and are constantly pursuing virtue and wisdom and knowledge and how they're going to be a better human being to help others. And they have empathy and compassion. Look at the friends that you have now that you call your friends. Do they embody all of those things? Not saying you need to cut them out of your lives, but understand that you're not going to get a real true value from those individuals unless the love you're giving them is reciprocated in kind. And I can't stress this enough. The Seneca talks about a poor man having only what he wants. And you have to realize that it is most times your ego that wants more friends. Your soul needs friends that are going to support you. So I don't know what I'm going to wrap that up with. I'd say go get rid of some of your friends, I guess, do an audit of your friends. But, I think it's so true. And I think one of the things, and same thing with you, Ralph, I tell my friends, I host the Stoic meetup group, right? And it's like, what the hell is that? And I've got some friends from that, honestly. I do have friends now that I talk to about Stoicism. They're coming along. Nobody wants to join me on this call, right? But still, yeah, so that's my last thing about the focused study and focused friendship is, I think that if you're going to really embody Stoic principles, you need to be friends with fellow philosophers that also can, challenge your ideas too. Because if a friend challenges your idea right now and they're not a philosopher, do they have credence to do that? Do they have the wherewithal? Because the credence that I get from my friends is based on the original source materials of Seneca and Marcus Aurelius and everybody else. So like when I would talk to Mike and he would call me out and say, well, Seneca didn't say that. And I couldn't say, Mike, you're wrong. I'd have to go, Seneca, you're wrong. And that's hard to do, right? So anyway, those are my thoughts on friendship and focus study and what Seneca said. Anybody else got anything else? By the way, I saw that Melinda said that Detroit, or no, Mason, you said that Detroit ain't far. Where are you at, Mason?
Detroit.
Oh, you're in Detroit? Oh,
Yes,
okay.
sir.
Oh, I didn't know that. Well, shit. Let's go grab a beer and watch the Eagles game then. But no,
Perhaps one of these days.
one of these days, absolutely. I'd invite anybody to come over. I'll have a beer with anybody, absolutely, anytime. But this is one of those topics that isn't sexy, and I did not expect 30 people here like we did for anxiety. But I think that this is something that this is how the sausage is made when it comes to good people, right? This is something that you really need to do and take the time to weekly, every day. It has to be something every day that you're doing. And it's like I said, it's not sexy, it's not fun. But if you're going to be happy, you need to force yourself to be uncomfortable to gain that growth and study things that mean something to you. Not study things that other people say that are interesting. Don't study things because somebody says that I think you should learn this. Have a thought for yourself and that moment of pause to say, this is something that is really important to my purpose in life. So that's all I got today, guys.
I do
And
want to say
Eric-
one thing now that I'm thinking, like also too, self-compassion with this both ways. So like if you're busting your ass like an animal and you're not taking, this is something I've done for myself. I either work way too hard or not hard enough. So I think having the focus for like how consistent one is and then how effective you are, and then like time off is important because it's like kind of like you just put in enough work to be effective and then find that zone and then understand when you've done a good job. And as a personal trainer, that's totally a thing. Like I have one client who doesn't challenge herself enough, and then I have another client that goes so hard that he gets hurt. So there's definitely like a middle ground that I found for myself is like objectively saying like, hey, you know what? I need a break. Let's go get some pecan pie, get some ice cream on that motherfucker, and maybe I'll even pretend I like football and UFC is okay. I can watch some UFC. That's not too bad. I watch a little of that. But then other times I have to look at myself and it's like, I'm leaving a lot of time on the table. Like I am not doing nearly enough. And that's something that I came to recently. It's like, man, I can make a lot more money and work just a little bit harder. Like I can totally do this. And that was like the sleep thing. That was part of the sleep thing that ended up happening to me is like, I could do a little more work. I'm like in that position. So also focused managing of time and documenting of results has been very, very useful for me as well. So just as like a last tidbit from yours truly.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you, Ralph. And I was trying to think of the last thing that you said that I had a point on, but I don't have anything to add to that. I'm not going to just talk to talk. So. Anybody else?
Well, Eric, I'll just reiterate that even though I'm good at being an extrovert, I am an introvert, and it is what has afforded me the luxury of, I guess, indulging in Stoicism, because that's what I find joy in. I remember going up and down a hill in Choley Park, which is in Toronto, Ontario. It's in Rosedale. And it's a steep enough hill, but I'd go up and down it for about an hour. Beside us was an interview going on with our old or our ex Olympic athletes. And they came over and said, oh my goodness, you're going up and down this hill forever. The whole time we were here filming. What are you training for? I said, for life, for this, to breathe, right? So...
No, I love it. Yeah, absolutely right. And I love that sentiment. I think that's a great way to leave it is why are you doing this? For life, right? You have to be doing your activity for the purpose of your life and not because you're trying to, impress anybody else. And my God, I'll leave you with that too, is like, don't have knowledge to impress anybody, have knowledge for your own life, right? And I still struggle with that. I love, impressing people with my knowledge. I love telling people all of my random World War II facts that what the fuck does it matter? World War II happened in the past. That's imagination. What am I bringing to the table? So I totally get it. So good for
You're
you. Hein.
cockadoodle doing.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So, all right, guys. Well, thanks for showing up. Thanks for talking about this today. Wish all of you the best of Sundays. Go Niners. And yeah, hopefully we'll see you. Next week. We're talking about true and false friendship. So that'll kind of go off of the tangent that I went on this week about, who are your friends and who are your false friends and why are you maintaining relationships with people that are otherwise probably pretty toxic to what your pursuit is, and how I'll give you my playbook for for cutting those people out of your lives, and the playbook for what I've found so far trying to find new friends, which I'm still learning every day. So
Thanks,
guys.
Eric.
Thanks. Have a great day, and
Go
we'll see you next
Niners.
week.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks,
Bye.
Alex. Take care, Mason.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.